Hello, good day to you. It's me, Andy, and this is Talking Really on a Tuesday. It's the 8th of March today. Cloudy, depressing, and yeah, so there we go. Now, this story we have in Disability News Service is there's a child sex abuse inquiry which was investigating special schools. Now, I saw this and I thought, wow, okay, that's interesting. Because I went to a special school, obviously a long time ago now, but it's not just about sexual abuse, it's about abuse in general. So that's why I'm talking about it myself, is that when I was at school, probably age about 14 or 15, and we went to a outward bound centre. The school I went to was in Kent, and the outward bound centre was in Cornwall, down near the south of the county, Truro, somewhere around that way. So it's sort of south Cornwall. Anyway, it was in the middle of nowhere. Special adapted premises. Well, I was there with my fellow classmates. It was allegedly supposed to be a geography week, and we were there to study, well, nature, really. So we had classes in the classroom, as you would expect. I remember one time our teacher was fairly nice, fairly nice person. They told me to go next door and go into a drawer because they didn't have any marker pens. So, I obliged. I went next door. There was people in the room. They were getting ready for their class. The teacher was there. They weren't teaching. That's why I was able to enter and go over to the drawer. Anyway, I had the drawer open, and I was just about to put my hand in the drawer to get the pens out, and I presume it was the teacher came along, kicked the drawer shut, and I narrowly missed having my fingers trapped in the drawer. Anyway, I sort of was quite shocked, and being very timid, I sort of didn't say a lot. I just sort of looked. I thought, oh, well, okay. And then he said, what are you doing? I'm sure it was a he. What are you doing? I said, well, I've been told to get pens. Oh, well, you need to ask. It's like, okay. Anyway, he said, get the pens and go. And I never really thought much of it. I didn't report it. And of course, I didn't really get on with that teacher anyway after that. So, and luckily we didn't have that teacher in our class. But the whole experience was very traumatic because, I mean, quite literally, it could have trapped my fingers and broken them. This report is quite damning, really. Let's have a look. What we can do is we can have a listen to this. It'd be quite interesting.
A major investigation by the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, IICSA, has called for tougher inspection and oversight of residential special schools, after hearing how some teachers exploited their positions to groom and abuse disabled pupils. A report on the investigation, which also examines sexual abuse that took place at residential specialist music settings and other schools, says it highlights shocking and horrific cases of abuse. The report says many of those in positions of authority and responsibility had not been held to account for their failure to halt and prevent the abuse, while many perpetrators had not been brought to justice. It says that disabled children are 3 times more likely than non-disabled children to experience sexual abuse. That the report, which examines abuse that took place in England and Wales, says there have been relatively few convictions for sexual abuse of children in residential special schools because of their difficulties in disclosing the abuse and providing evidence. It also warns of the limited advocacy services for disabled children in England and Wales, despite the importance of disabled children having access to individuals independent of their schools who can listen to them and advocate for them. The report says this issue has been raised a number of times before. When asked whether independent advocacy for disabled children needed to be looked at again, Dame Christine Lenihan, director of the Council for Disabled Children, told the inquiry, "I think it's been looked at again, and again, and again in the last 20 years. I think the honest answer is that people won't resource it effectively because they don't see it as important enough." Victims and survivors of sexual abuse have told the inquiry that the combination of their impairments and their school's distance from their parental homes had made them particularly vulnerable. The report also says that local authority oversight of the residential special school sector is not sufficiently robust. Local authorities for the areas where residential special schools are located sometimes lack information on these schools and the needs of their pupils, while those councils that have placed disabled children in schools in other parts of the country do not always visit pupils regularly. The report says that the size of the residential special school sector fell from 7,600 pupils boarding in residential special schools in England in 2010 to fewer than 4,000 pupils in 2019, largely because more children were attending local schools. It says there is broad consensus between Ofsted, the Education and Care Watchdog in England, the Care Inspectorate Wales, the Welsh Government and Dame Christine that changes to inspection and oversight of residential special schools were needed. Among the report's recommendations, it calls for residential special schools in England and Wales to be inspected against tougher standards. It also calls for an urgent review of relationships, sex and health education, RSHE, for children with special educational needs and disabilities in both mainstream settings and special schools in England and Wales. And it says the Department for Education, covering England, and the Welsh Government should reintroduce a duty on boarding schools and residential special schools to inform the relevant inspectorate of any allegations of child sexual abuse and other serious incidents. Professor Alexis J. Pictured, the inquiry's chair, said, "Day and residential schools play a key role in keeping children safe from harm, but despite 20 years of enhanced focus on safeguarding, they are not as safe for children as they should be."
So there you go. That's the story. I do know another story, but I'm not going to reveal it here. So there you go. Have a good day. Some more videos coming up very soon.